Hello Exiles, Ed here from the 1912 Exiles podcast. As you might have seen, we ran a short survey this week to take the temperature of Newport County fans on a couple of key issues, and I thought you might be interested in the results. So here is a short video where I do my best John Curtis impression and talk you through the data. By way of background, as you know, Newport County are at a critical point of the season. Tomorrow's match against Gillingham will be the 10th league game, our 12th competitive fixture overall, and whilst we've played some very, very good teams in that early spell, the corollary is that next month sees a run of games which will likely be absolutely critical to County's league survival. Now it therefore seemed is a good time to gauge how people are feeling about matters both on and off the pitch. So we set out to ask just 4 questions to test the water. Firstly, we wanted to ask about people's preferred team selection from the players available. Secondly, we wanted to ask whether people feel Newport County are in danger of relegation. We wanted to ask what those critical league games next month might yield in terms of points. And lastly, we wanted to ask people how they felt on the statement put up last week by Chairman Hugh Jenkins. We had over 150 people respond to the survey. Thank you very much if you were one of them. That wasn't too shabby. If pollsters can project general election results based on a sample size of 1,000, I think we can extrapolate a decent approximation from our sample of where Newport County fans are at with things at the moment. But the social scientist in me will obviously emphasise a note of caution about not reading too much into the results. It is a snapshot of opinion. In some areas, as I'll explain, I think it's really helpful in telling us some things, but in other areas, less so. So with that caveat, let's get into the results. The first question was, we got you to pick your favoured starting 11 from the current squad, assuming all players are fit and available, and according to your own preferred tactics and lineup. We're purely interested in who you think should be the first names on the team sheet, and also to help us identify those who have been starting games recently who perhaps haven't impressed the fan base quite as much. Let's start off in goals. No surprise that Nick Zanev romped home here with 96% of the vote, having pulled off some heroic saves despite a few mistakes along the way. But then we look elsewhere in the team, outfield, and I've picked out the players who got over 70% of support from respondents. So in defence, those were Matt Baker, no huge surprise there, but then Lee Jenkins, who has absolutely snatched the opportunity that he's been given and has put in the sorts of performances that clearly make a big impression on people. Then let's look at the midfield. Matt Smith, the marquee signing of the summer, picked up a lot of votes here, 77%, despite rarely managing a full 90 minutes in games. It will be interesting to know how fans' views on him might change if fitness was taken into account. The message, I think, probably is that we like him when he's fit and available, but I wonder whether we can shape our team around him at present. That may be something we come back and discuss on the pod. And Kai Whitmore, I think, is interesting for similar reasons. He has shown he can dictate games when he's fit and firing, and that perhaps accounts for that 89% of people who want him in the lineup. I also think he's critical to how Hughes wants this team to play. But again, fitness is perhaps the key issue. And the final one of the midfield trio, if we're playing 3 in the middle, was Sammy Braybrook, who again got a huge support here, 96%, despite only playing 2 games so far. He has clearly made a big impression already. And another new signing, Nathan Opoku, was the leading attacker, the only one to get over 70% of the vote. Equally interesting, though, I think, are some of the players who've been in and around the first team but who picked up a relatively low number of picks from the respondents. So Cam Evans, a regular starter last season but hasn't persuaded many of you this year. Joe Thomas, likewise, one of the bright sparks from last season, but in many fans' minds now seems to be a long way down the pecking order. Kieran Brennan played a lot of games last year, perhaps I think is the victim of injury keeping him out of contention this year, and again is one who perhaps has slipped down the pecking order. But then Cameron Antwi, I thought, was fascinating. Notably low score there, 20% for someone who's played as many games as he has since joining last season. Ben Lloyd, another low performer, maybe he'll see himself pushed out by Braybrook's arrival and Whitmore's improving fitness. But for me, the most fascinating one there was Michael Reindorf, 37%, by no means the lowest of the attacking options, but I was surprised to see him not picking up more votes from people. Perhaps it's more of a reflection of the fact that none of the strikers have really made that place their own, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. The second question that we asked was a simple one. Do you think Newport County will stay up on the basis of what you've seen so far? 52-48 in favour of saying that we will. Clearly a tight vote, and it would seem from that most fans do expect a relegation battle. But yeah, certainly no clear consensus one way or the other. Now, we love a bit of alliteration on the podcast. Last season we had Fight Back February, when County secured points at home against Barrow, Carlisle and Morecambe, propelling us away from the drop zone and towards safety. This year, when the fixtures came out, most of us circled October as the make or break month, and Ian from the podcast christened it Octopus October. Would we be able to wriggle our way out of trouble, or would it be a load of old tentacles? And we asked you how many points County would get from those 3 pivotal games against our likely relegation rivals. Most people, as you might expect, leaned towards the middle of the options. Over 70% thought it would be somewhere between 3 points and 6 points, with slightly more looking at the lower end of the spectrum. Of those who went for the extremes, 16% thought we'd struggle to get to 3 points, whilst 9% thought we'd be looking at 7 to 9 points. Again, I'll come on to talk about why I think that's interesting. And the final question was on the statement that Chairman Hugh Jenkins put out last week, 12th of September. It was clearly provided as an attempt to reassure fans after that poor start to the season, but did it succeed? Well, here were some of the words that came up a lot in the free text responses. Not everyone replied to this. I think we had 140 responses, and of course across free text responses you get a range of different things put in, but there were a few words that kept coming up. The one that leapt out at me was deluded or variations thereof, delusional, delusion. That kept coming up and was interesting, I think, for what it says about the strength of feeling amongst some fans. Confidence and plan came up a lot, but both positively and negatively. Some people saying they did still have confidence in Mr. Jenkins, some saying they didn't, some saying that they felt he had a good plan, others saying they didn't. But the other big takeaway was that player recruitment had clearly been a key concern. So what can we take away from some of this? Well, unsurprisingly, but thankfully, people clearly haven't given up hope yet. It's still September, there's no sense that relegation is a done deal, and a lot of us, I think, are reserving judgment to see what happens in those knife-edge games next month. There is also a sense, I think, from fans, and hopefully also from Dave Hughes as well, that a nucleus of this side is emerging. I thought it was really interesting to see such a strong consensus that Smith, Whitmore and Braybrook are felt to be an effective midfield trio. Can they be fit enough to do it for 90 minutes every week? That may well be the question on which County's league survival depends. Likewise in defence, fans have seen enough to believe that Baker and Jenkins are the base of that back line, with James Clark currently felt to be the best third option if we play 3 at the back. But there was a big question mark about our striking options. Nathan Opoku clearly impressed fans in his first 2 performances, but behind that there's no consensus about our best partnership. Bobby Camwer, Courtney Baker-Richardson had relatively high votes given their poor scoring form this season, but the question has to be, which striking pair can get the most out of each other? And I don't think we're any closer to knowing the answer to that now than we were back at the start of August. It also appears that Mr. Jenkins' honeymoon period, the honeymoon, is over. As a podcast, we've taken a nuanced line on his tenure. We've had him on in the past for a conversation, and hopefully we will do again. And there was a range of views put forward in the survey. But it is clear that the majority of respondents are frustrated by the lack of investment in the playing team. We've said before, there's a balance to be struck between investing in the team on the one hand and balancing the books on the other. And to put it mildly, the mood amongst fans, or at least the ones who replied to our survey, seems to be that the balance is not quite right at the moment. That's it for now. If you want to come and discuss this in greater length, then we will be at the Riverside Sports Bar tomorrow after full time against Gillingham. So come along and say hello. And please do like, share and subscribe what the podcast is up to if you like what we do. But for now, look after yourselves and each other. And above all, as always, keep it county.